High Commander Zervex stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue planet floating in the darkness of space. Earth, such a small world. Such a weak species living on it. He clicked his mandibles together in what passed for a smile among his kind. The Valkyrie Dominion had conquered over 300 worlds in the last 10,000 years. They had crushed species with technology far greater than these humans possessed. This conquest would be easy. It would be quick. Zervex expected to be home within a month, adding another trophy to his collection. "High Commander," one of his officers said, "we have completed our scans of the planet. Report. 7 billion inhabitants. They have primitive nuclear weapons, chemical rockets, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. They have not even left their own star system yet." Zervex made a sound of amusement. "They are children playing with toys. Send the message." The communication officer nodded and activated the broadcast system. The message went out on every frequency the humans used. Every television, every radio, every computer screen on Earth displayed the same image. Zervex, tall and terrifying with his black exoskeleton and glowing red eyes. "People of Earth," he said. His voice translated into every human language. "I am High Commander Zervex of the Valkyrie Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately. Your leaders will present themselves to our landing forces within 6 hours. If you resist, you will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The message ended. Zervex turned to watch the planet below, waiting for the panic to begin. He was not disappointed. On Earth, chaos erupted. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. World leaders shouted at each other through video screens. Military generals demanded action, while politicians demanded calm. In the streets, people screamed and ran. Some prayed. Some looted stores. Some simply stood and stared at the sky, waiting for Death Dot in New York City. An old veteran named James Cooper watched the alien message on his television. He had fought in 3 wars during his long life. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies. He had known fear many times. But as he watched the alien commander speak, he did not feel fear. He felt something else entirely. He felt angry. "You think you can just take our world?" he said to the screen. "You have no idea what you've started." In Beijing, a young soldier named Wei Liang checked her rifle for the 10th time. Her commanding officer had ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Nobody knew what they were preparing for. How do you fight aliens with spaceships? But Wei Liang did not care about the odds. She only knew that something was coming to hurt her family, her country, her world. And she would fight it in Lagos. Dr. Ades Okonkwo sat in her laboratory, a brilliant mind already racing with possibilities. She was one of the smartest engineers on the planet. She had spent her life solving impossible problems. Now she faced the most impossible problem of all. But as she watched the alien broadcast, she noticed something. The alien ships used some kind of energy field. If she could study it, understand it, maybe she could find a weakness. "Everything has a weakness," she whispered to herself. Everything. In Moscow, in London, in Tokyo, in Sao Paulo, the story was the same. Fear mixed with anger. Despair mixed with determination. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They had developed weapons to kill each other in countless ways. They had written books about war, made movies about heroes, told stories about warriors who never surrendered. Now, for the first time, they had a common enemy. High Commander Zervex watched his fleet move into position around Earth, 20 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a continent. 500 smaller attack ships, 100,000 ground troops, each one stronger and faster than any human. "Begin the landing sequence," he ordered. "Target the major population centers. We will crush their capitals first. Once their leaders are dead, the rest will surrender." The landing ships detached from the main fleet and began their descent through Earth's atmosphere. They glowed like falling stars as they cut through the sky. People on the ground looked up and saw them coming. Some ran, some hid, but many stood their ground. In Washington, D.C., the president addressed the nation. Her voice was calm but firm. "We do not know if we can win this fight," she said, "but we know that we must fight. Every generation before us faced impossible challenges. They survived. They endured. They won. Now it is our turn. We will not surrender. We will not bow. We will show these invaders what humanity is made of." Around the world, people listened, and something changed. The panic began to fade. In its place came something harder, something colder, something the Velthari had never encountered in all their conquests: resolve. High Commander Zeverx watched the first landing ships touch down on Earth's surface. He expected immediate surrender. He expected white flags and begging for mercy. He expected the quick, clean victory he had won 100 times before. He was wrong. The first explosion came from a city called Snow Paulo, then another from Moscow, then another from New York. His communication officer turned to him with confusion in his eyes. "High Commander, our ground forces report heavy resistance. They are taking casualties." Zyrvex clicked his mandibles in annoyance. "Casualties? From primitives with chemical weapons?" "Yes, High Commander. The humans are... they are fighting back." Zyrvex stared at the screen, showing his ground troops under attack. Buildings were falling. Fire was spreading. And everywhere, humans were fighting with a ferocity he had never seen before. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Perhaps this conquest will take a few weeks after all." He had no idea how wrong he was. The Velthari soldier never saw the bullet that killed him. One moment he was marching through the narrow streets of Snow Paulo. The next moment he was dead on the ground, green blood pooling beneath his broken exoskeleton. His squad commander looked around in confusion. They had conquered dozens of species. None of them had ever fought like this. These humans did not stand in open fields waiting to die. They hid in buildings. They attacked from shadows. They used their own cities as weapons. "Find them," the commander ordered. "Find them and kill them all." But the humans were already gone. They had melted into the maze of streets and alleys, waiting for their next chance to strike. 3 blocks away, Maria Santos reloaded her rifle with shaking hands. She was a schoolteacher. 3 days ago, her biggest worry was grading papers. Now she was a soldier in a war for survival. The old veteran beside her, a man named Carlos, who had fought in his country's civil war decades ago, put a hand on her shoulder. "You did good," he said. "You killed one of them." "I killed something," Maria whispered. "I never killed anything before. Neither did I once. But when something tries to kill your family, your home, you learn fast." Carlos checked his own weapon. "Come, we need to move before they find us." Across the world, the same scene repeated itself in 1,000 different places. The Velthari expected easy victory. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a nightmare dot in the frozen forests of Siberia. A Russian battalion lured an entire Velthari company into an ambush. The aliens had better weapons, better armor, better everything. But the Russians knew the land. They knew the cold. They used both as weapons. When the battle ended, not a single alien survived in the mountains of Afghanistan. Warriors who had fought invaders for generations found new invaders to fight. The Valkyrie commander who led his troops into those mountains never came out in the jungles of Vietnam, in the deserts of Iraq, in the streets of every major city on Earth. Humanity showed the Valkyrie something they had never seen before. A species that refused to die. High Commander Zeovex stared at the casualty reports and felt something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. "This is impossible," he said. "We have lost 6,000 troops in 3 days. 6,000. Against primitives." His science officer stepped forward nervously. "High Commander, I have been studying these humans. I believe I understand why they fight so effectively. Speak." "They have been fighting each other for their entire history. Every generation has known war. They have developed hundreds of different ways to kill. Ambush, traps, guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare. They have been practicing for this moment for 10,000 years. Zyrvix turned to stare at the officer. "They fight each other? Their own species?" "Constantly. Their history is written in blood. They have never known true peace." For the first time in his long career, Zyrvex felt uncertain. What kind of species fought itself? What kind of madness drove these creatures? Meanwhile, in Lagos, Dr. Ades Okonkwo had not slept in 4 days. A laboratory was filled with pieces of captured Valkyrie equipment. Dead aliens lay on tables, being studied by her team. Every piece of technology was examined, tested, taken apart. "I found it," she said suddenly, her tired eyes going wide. "I found their weakness." Her assistant rushed over. "What? What did you find?" Ades pointed to a device they had taken from a dead Valkyrie officer. "Their shields. Their ships, their armor, everything is protected by energy shields. But the shields operate on a specific frequency. If we can match that frequency, we can create weapons that pass right through. Can you do it?" Ades smiled for the first time in days. "Give me 48 hours. It took her 30-6. The first test of her new weapon happened in the sky above the Indian Ocean. A Kov, Valkyrie gunship, was hunting human refugees on a boat. The humans had no weapons that could hurt it. Its shields were impenetrable. Then a missile rose from a nearby island. It was a human missile, but modified with a D's frequency technology. The Valkyrie pilot saw it coming and did not bother to evade. His shields would stop it. They did not. The missile passed through the shields like they were not there. The gunship exploded in a ball of fire. On his flagship, Zyrvex received the report with growing horror. "They cracked our shield frequency? In less than a week?" "Yes, High Commander. The weapon came from a human laboratory in Africa. Our intelligence suggests a single scientist was responsible." Zyrvex slammed his fist against his command chair. No species had ever cracked Valkyrie shield technology so quickly. It usually took centuries, if it happened at all. These humans had done it in days. "High Commander," his communication officer said, voice trembling. "We are receiving reports from orbit. One of our dreadnoughts. What about it?" "It is gone, sir." The humans launched missiles from the surface. Modified missiles. Our shields could not stop them. Zyrvex watched through his viewport as the wreckage of the dreadnought Invincible drifted past. It had been one of his greatest ships. Now it was burning metal and dead soldiers, for the first time in his long life. High Commander Zyrvex understood something terrible. He had not invaded a primitive world. He had awakened something ancient and dangerous. Something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Humanity had found an enemy worthy of its wrath. On Earth, people saw the burning dreadnought in the night sky. They saw it fall like a second moon, breaking apart as it entered the atmosphere. And they cheered. Dr. Ades Okonkwo watched from her laboratory window. Her team gathered around her, exhausted but triumphant. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "If we can do this in 1 week, Imagine what we can do in 1 month. 1 year. Her assistant looked at her with hope in his eyes. Do you think we can win? A day's thought about her family, her country, her world. She thought about every human being fighting and dying to protect their home. I think, she said slowly, that they should never have come here. I think they have made the worst mistake in the history of their empire. She turned back to her work. There was much more to do above Earth. High Commander Zyrex made a decision that no Valthera commander had made in 1,000 years. He called for reinforcements. 6 months had passed since the invasion began. Earth was scarred. Cities lay in ruins. Millions had died. But humanity still stood. More than that, humanity had changed. For the first time in history, there were no more nations. No more borders. No more old hatreds. The flags of individual countries still flew, but above them all flew a new flag. A simple blue circle on a white background. Earth. United. Underground factories worked day and night, producing weapons that combined human creativity with stolen alien technology. Veterans of 100 old wars trained new soldiers, teaching them tactics that the Valtheri had never seen. Scientists from every country worked together, sharing knowledge freely, racing to unlock every secret hidden in captured alien equipment. The Valtheri reinforcements had arrived 2 months ago. 50 more dreadnoughts. 300,000 more troops. High Commander Zyrex had expected this force to finally crush the human resistance. He was wrong again. The new troops died just like the old ones. The new ships burned just like the first dreadnought. Humanity had become a machine built for one purpose: survival. And nothing could stop it. In a secret base beneath the Swiss mountains, Admiral James Chun studied the holographic map of Earth's defenses. He was an old man now, but his mind was still sharp. He had spent his whole life preparing for war. Now he finally had a war worth fighting. Report, he said to his officers. Sir, we have confirmed kills on 12 more Valtheri ships this week. Our ground forces have pushed them back from 3 major cities. Casualties are heavy, but morale is high. Chun nodded slowly. It's not enough. We're holding them, but we can't keep this up forever. We need to take the fight to them, sir. His younger officers looked confused. Take the fight to them? How? They control space. Chun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Not for long. 3 days later, Operation Fenrir began. The Valtheri command ship, Eternal Glory, orbited Earth like a metal moon. It was the largest ship in the fleet, protected by 1,000 fighters and impenetrable shields. High Commander Zyrex commanded the entire invasion from its bridge. He thought he was safe. The first sign of trouble was a small, human shuttle approaching the ship. The Valtheri scanners identified it immediately. One small craft, no weapons visible, broadcasting a surrender signal. Another group of cowards seeking mercy, Zyrex said dismissively. Destroy it. Wait, his science officer said suddenly. Something is wrong. The shuttle's energy signature is strange. Before anyone could respond, the shuttle exploded against the Eternal Glory shields. But it was not a normal explosion. Hidden inside the shuttle was a device that perfectly matched the Valtheri shield frequency. The explosion passed through the shields and ripped open the ship's hull. Alarm screamed. Emergency lights flashed. And through the hole in the hull came the soldiers of Fenrir Squad. There were only 20 of them. They knew they would probably die. They did not care. The Valtheri were stronger than humans. Faster. Their armor was better. Their weapons were deadlier. But the humans of Fenrir Squad had something the aliens could not. Understand. They were not afraid to die. The battle inside the Eternal Glory lasted 2 hours. 15 human soldiers died, taking over 200 Valtheri with them. But the remaining 5 reached the bridge. They killed Zyrva's guards. They captured the High Commander himself, and then they flew his ship to Earth. The capture of the Eternal Glory changed everything. Inside its computers were star maps, technology databases, and something even more valuable: the complete history of the Velthari Dominion. Dr. Adaze Okonkwo led the team that studied the captured data. What she found made her heart race with excitement. "Faster than light travel," she whispered, staring at the screen. "They have faster than light travel. And I understand how it works." Within a month, human engineers had built their first FTL prototype. It was ugly. It was dangerous. It worked. Admiral Chun stood in the command center as the first human ship prepared to jump beyond Earth's solar system. The target was a Velthari supply station 3 light years away. A small target, but an important one. "This is the moment," Chun said to his officers. "For 10,000 years, humanity has looked at the stars and dreamed. Today, we reach out and take them. Not as explorers, but as warriors. The Velthari came to our home and tried to destroy us. Now we bring the war to theirs." The human ship vanished in a flash of light. 6 hours later, it returned. The supply station was destroyed. The first battle outside Earth's solar system was a human victory. High Commander Zyrex, now a prisoner in a human cell, received the news from a guard who could not stop smiling. "Impossible," Zilvex whispered. "You cannot have mastered FTL travel so quickly. It took our species 5,000 years. The guard shrugged. "We learn fast, especially when someone is trying to kill us." Zyrex sat alone in his cell, finally understanding his terrible mistake. He had invaded a world of wolves. For thousands of years, those wolves had fought each other, growing stronger with every battle. Now they had united into a single pack, and they were hunting. Across the galaxy, word began to spread. The Velthari Dominion, undefeated for 10,000 years, was losing a war. Losing to a species nobody had ever heard of. A species from a small blue world, an unremarkable solar system. Humans, they were called, and they were coming. On Earth, Dr. Adaze Okonkwo stood before the United Earth Council. Behind her, a holographic map showed the Velthari Empire. Hundreds of worlds. Billions of enemies. Impossible odds. 6 months ago, they came to destroy us, she said. They thought we were weak. They thought we would surrender. They were wrong. She pointed to a distant star on the map. The Velthari homeworld. Now we take the war to them. Not for revenge. Not for conquest. But to make sure they never threaten Earth again. They started this war. We will finish it. The council voted unanimously. The wolves were awakening. And the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after the invasion, the war had spread across the stars. The Velthari Dominion, rulers of 300 worlds, found themselves facing something they had never experienced before. They were being hunted. Human. Fleets struck without warning. They appeared from nowhere, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They attacked supply lines, communication stations, military bases. They turned the Velthari's own tactics against them. The conquered species of the Dominion watched in amazement. For generations, they had lived under Velthari rule, believing resistance was impossible. Now they saw alien overlords running scared from ships marked with a simple blue circle. Lady Thesara, the new High Commander of the Velthari forces, sat in her private chambers studying everything she could find about humanity. She had replaced Zyrex after his capture. The Dominion Council expected her to win the war quickly. She knew better. Show me their history again, she ordered her computer. The screen filled with images. Human wars. Human weapons. Human atrocities. The Zara watched as humans killed each other with swords, then guns, then bombs. Then weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. Generation after generation of violence. They have never stopped fighting, she said quietly. Not once in their entire history. Her assistant, a young officer named Vexinar, shifted uncomfortably. Surely that is a weakness, Lady Thesara. A species that cannot find peace with itself must be deeply flawed. Thesara shook her head slowly. No, young one. It is their greatest strength. Every other species we have conquered developed weapons only when threatened. They fought only when they had to. But humans? They fight because it is in their nature. They have been training for war since the first human picked up a rock and struck another. She called up more data. Human literature. Human movies. Human legends. Look at their stories, she said. They worship warriors. Their heroes are soldiers and fighters. They tell tales of small groups defeating vast armies through courage and cunning. They celebrate those who die in battle. Thesara stood and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. We did not invade a civilization. We invaded a species of predators. They had been hunting each other for so long that when we arrived, they simply found new prey. What do we do? Vexinar asked, fear creeping into his voice. I do not know, Thesara admitted. For the first time in 10,000 years, I truly do not know. While the Velthari commanders debated, human forces continued their campaign across the galaxy. Admiral Chun commanded the main fleet from his flagship, the Earth's Vengeance. It was a massive ship, built from human engineering and Velthari technology combined. Its crew came from every nation on Earth, united in a single purpose. But the most important victory of the war did not involve any weapons at all. The Cathalae were a small species. They had been slaves of the Velthari for over 1,000 years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. When human forces liberated their world, the Cathalae did not know how to react. Captain Sarah Martinez led the liberation force. She was a young officer, barely 30 years old, but she had already fought in 12 battles. She had seen friends die. She had killed more enemies than she could count. But when she walked into the Cathali city and saw the crowds of thin, frightened aliens staring at her, she felt something new. She felt responsible. We are not here to conquer you, she announced through her translator. We are here to free you. The Velthari will never hurt you again. An old Cathali stepped forward. His skin was gray with age, his body bent from years of hard labor. Why? He asked simply. Why would you fight for us? You do not know us. We are not your people. Martinez thought for a moment. Then she knelt down to look the old alien in the eyes. Because someone should have, she said. Because nobody deserves to be a slave. And because someday we might need help too. Hopefully, when that day comes, someone will remember what we did here. The old Catholic stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. He smiled. The humans are coming, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The humans are coming, and they fight for us. The phrase spread like fire. The Cathalii told other slave species. They told others. Within weeks, the entire galaxy knew the words. The humans are coming. On world after world, slaves began to resist their Velthari masters. Small rebellions at first, then larger ones. They did not fight alone anymore. They knew help was on the way. Lady Thesara watched the reports come in with growing despair. The Dominion was crumbling, not just from military defeats, but from something worse. The humans had given the galaxy's oppressed species something more powerful than any weapon: hope. Recall all forces to the homeworld, she ordered. We will make our stand on Velthara Prime. If we fall there, we fall everywhere. Her officers rushed to obey. Ships from across the Empire began the long journey home, but the humans were faster. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Earth's Vengeance, watching his fleet assemble. 300 ships now flew under the Earth flag. Many were captured Veltri vessels. Some were ships built in hidden factories across the galaxy. A few were gifts from liberated species, given freely to their human saviors. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "all ships are in position. We are ready to jump." Chun nodded slowly. 1 year ago, humanity had never traveled beyond its own solar system. Now a human fleet was about to attack the heart of a galactic empire. "Open a channel to all ships," Chun ordered. "This is Admiral Chun. 1 year ago, the Veltri came to Earth to enslave us. They killed our families, burned our cities, tried to break our spirit. They failed." He paused, looking at the stars through his viewport. "Today, we end this war. Not for revenge, not for glory, but to make sure no one ever threatens our home again. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone the Veltri have hurt." He straightened his uniform and gave the order. "Jump." 300 ships vanished into the darkness, heading for the final battle. The hunt was almost over. The wolves had found their prey. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace above Velthera Prime. 300 ships against the massed forces of the Velthari Dominion. The alien homeworld hung in space like a dark jewel, surrounded by more than 1,000 warships. Admiral Chun looked at the enemy fleet and smiled. "They think numbers will save them," he said quietly. "They still don't understand." The Dominion Council had offered surrender before the battle. Complete and unconditional. They would give up everything. Leave Earth alone forever. Pay any price. Chun had refused. "We don't want your surrender," he had told them. "We want accountability. Every species you enslaved, every world you destroyed, every life you took. There must be a reckoning." Now that reckoning had come, the Battle of Velthra Prime began with fire and ended with silence. The Velthari had more ships, more guns, more soldiers. But humans had something the aliens could never match. They had 10,000 years of war in their blood. Human ships did not fight in neat formations like the Velthari. They fought like wolves, working in small packs, striking weak points, drawing enemies into traps. They used tactics from ancient naval battles on Earth's oceans. They used tricks learned in world wars and cold wars and 100 smaller conflicts. The Velthari commanders could not adapt fast enough. Every time they adjusted to one human tactic, the humans changed to another. It was like fighting water. They could not grasp it, could not predict it, could not stop it. One by one, the Velthari ships fell. Lady Thesara watched from her command center on the planet's surface. She had known this day would come. She had known from the moment she first studied human history. A species that spent 10,000 years perfecting. The art of killing could not be defeated by an empire that had forgotten what real war looked like. "Open a channel." To the human flagship, she ordered. "My lady, you cannot surrender without the Council's approval. The Council can approve from their prison cells. I will not let more of our people die for their pride. Open the channel." Admiral Chun appeared on her screen. He looked tired. He had been fighting for over a year now, but his eyes were still sharp, still dangerous. "Lady Thesara," he said, "are you ready to end this?" "I am ready to discuss terms." "There are no terms. Your dominion will be dissolved. Your military will be destroyed. Your leaders will face trial for crimes against the galaxy. Your people will live, but your empire dies today." Thesara closed her eyes. She thought of 10,000 years of Velthari glory, 10,000 years of conquest and power, all of it ending because they had chosen the wrong world to invade. "I accept," she said. The guns fell silent. 3 days later, Lady Thesara stood in a meeting room aboard the Earth's Vengeance. Across from her sat Admiral Chun. Between them lay documents that would change the galaxy forever. Before she signed, the Zara asked the question that had haunted her since the war began. "Tell me," she said, "what are you? What kind of species fights the way you do? What drives you?" Chun thought for a long moment before answering. "We're human," he said finally. "We're the species that looks into the darkness and refuses to be afraid. We're the people who build cities, watch them burn, and build them again. We're the creatures who will set ourselves on fire just to burn our enemies." He leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers. "We spent 10,000 years fighting each other because we didn't have anyone else to fight. We developed weapons that could destroy our own world because we were too stubborn to stop. And when you came to our planet, when you threatened our families and our home, you gave us something we had never had before." "What was that?" "A target." The Zara signed the documents. The Velthari Dominion, 10,000 years old, officially ceased to exist. In its place rose something new. 6 months after the war ended, Dr. Ades Okonkwo stood before the first meeting of the Galactic Coalition. Representatives from over 100 species filled the Great Hall. Many of them had been slaves just a year ago. Now they were free. Ades had been chosen to speak for humanity. She had never wanted this job. She was a scientist, not a politician. But when the United Earth Council asked her, she could not refuse. "1 year ago," she began, "the Velthari came to our world. They thought we were weak. They thought we would be easy to conquer. They looked at our technology and saw primitives. They looked at our history and saw savages fighting each other." She paused, looking around the hall at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. "They were right about one thing. We have been fighting each other for our entire history. We have done terrible things to each other. We have been cruel and violent and destructive." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not the speech they expected. "But that history also made us strong," Ades continued. "Strong enough to survive anything. Strong enough to adapt to any threat. Strong enough to win a war that everyone said was impossible." She stood straighter, her voice growing firm. "We came from a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system. We fought each other for centuries before we learned to fight together. We made mistakes. We caused suffering. We are not perfect." She looked directly into the recording devices, knowing her words would reach every corner of the galaxy. "But we learned something important. We learned that the universe is dangerous, and the only way to survive is to stand together. So today, we offer you something we never had. We offer you protection. We offer you partnership. We offer you a promise." And Azur's voice echoed through the silent hall. Ades' voice echoed through the silent hall. "Any species that threatens the weak will answer to us. Any empire that enslaves others will fall like the Velthari fell. Humanity spent 10,000 years learning how to fight. Now we will use that knowledge to defend those who cannot defend themselves." She smiled, and in that smile was all of human history. All the pain and glory and terrible beauty of a species that had never stopped struggling. We are human. We remember what it was like to stand alone against the darkness. And we promise you this: you will never stand alone again. The hall exploded in cheers. 100 species, finally free, finally hopeful, celebrating the strange creatures from Earth who had saved them all. In his prison cell on Volthora Prime, former High Commander Ziervex listened to the broadcast. He thought about the day he had first seen Earth, floating small and blue in the darkness of space. He had thought it would be an easy conquest, a quick victory. He could not have been more wrong. Outside his window, a human ship passed by, marked with the blue circle of Earth. It was heading out into the galaxy, probably to help some other species in need. Probably to fight some other tyrant. Ziervex watched it go and finally understood the truth. Humanity had not won because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They had won because they never stopped fighting. They never stopped hoping. They never stopped believing that tomorrow could be better than today. The galaxy had finally met the wolves of Earth, and everything had changed.